Thank you for joining us. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Approval of the agenda. Recommended the Planning and Development Committee meeting agenda for September 25th, 2024 be adopted as circulated. And mover, seconded, John. All those in favor? Very awesome. Adoption of the minutes. Recommended that the minutes of the Planning and Development Committee meeting held on August 21st, 2024 be adopted. Hoover, John, seconder, Deb. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to new business. We have a discussion on country residential zone, Livingston Street, and June's gonna give us a little introduction, and we also have Jeff Jeff's the agent for the landowner, so he's in the gallery. So if he has any comments, I'm sure you have a few, and we can discuss this. Okay, go ahead, June.
Okay. Okay, through the chair. The intent of this short presentation is to advise the committee regarding some cases where OCP, zoning, and the architectural use may not align. So that the idea of this short presentation is to let the committee and thus the community formulate some idea on the future OCP, zoning, and land use applications and its considerations.
Okay.
This is the area that I will going to use it as an example for today's discussion. Through here, we are not referencing one particular properties, but this is the general vicinity where I believe that we can use it as some exemplary for OCPN and the zoning not necessarily aligning to each other. Let me go to the next page. So this is a snip of the official community plan. And then as we see from this image, this is the area that is designated as a highway commercial A. And then you can see that it is abutting to the civic, town center, parks, residential low density, and then some of the OCP fragmentations, which appears that these were the designation of the larger lot before it getting further developed from the long time ago. But these fraction may have been just left over without being changed to something that is more appropriate. So when we see the zoning designation of the properties that is located within this highway commercial A OCP designation, we see that this is an area under OCP, it's a highway commercial A. We see that there is a spectrum of zonings. So this is a zoning designations. C-1 is a local and town center commercial. C-2 still the commercial. These are the property that are not necessarily aligning to the existing OCP. So one example is a country residential, which is under the spectrum of residential zoning. And the other is a P-1 civic and recreation, which is under the spectrum of the public. So the reason why these possible necessity or the reason why it may need to be matching the actual use and to the zoning and thus to the OCP as well is because when the community conducts the review on the new applications like development permit, or it could be a building permit, but anything that has to do with the OCP rezoning application, the community is advised to think about the spectrum. So this is a snip of a land use designation, which forms a part of official community plan. And this is a snip of the map schedule of the zoning bylaw. So when we see some of the designations here, like for example, highway commercial A, highway commercial B, commercial. So these areas, these designations are within a spectrum of the commercial. So if there is a property that has a OCP designation of the commercial, but happen to have something that is non-commercial, like residential or maybe an industrial or public, when we receive an application, it's advisable that we not only review the application as is, but also its conformity to OCP and zoning. And thus, if they are not matching, we may need to advise why don't the proponent matches the actual use or the proposed form of the development to the OCP so that way the community can, I guess, confirm the application's conformity to what we desire to see. So when I say what we desire to see, it's because of I'm referencing the role of an official community plan. So official community plan, from my perspective, it reflects the communal desire. So by having the official community plan, that is the documents of what community wants to see when it comes to the growth, strategy, and development or such. And then development permit area, which is a part of the OCP schedule. That's the one, for example, this one. We have a schedule, I think it's a C, and then the schedule D. So these are the part of the OCP through which we are defining what we want to see when it comes to development. So each development permit area comes with the policies and strategies and guidelines, which should reflect what community wants to see within that development. So in this case, DPA redesignation is also the consideration when we are doing OCP redesignation or rezoning. So when we change the OCP to something else, but without not matching these development permit areas to something that is more appropriate, we will be encountering the situation where we would review the general policies of the OCP, but development permit area guideline would not match with it. Therefore, it would create non-conformity or awkward situation where the planners or the other district staff may experience a hard time to render what we really need to say. It was just for the thought and discussion.
Okay, great. Committee, do you have some comments or concerns?
I believe I just do have to state that.
Maybe just to check with Daryl. Daryl, is that John's works for the developer that owns the property? We probably weren't voting on anything. Does he need to leave?
No, we're not voting on anything today. It's just information, right?
Make sure it does.
Yeah, just a broad view of, zoning, and it's really good on June and Nicole to bring this forward for discussion, just because we're anticipating a lot of changes in the future. We just want to make sure that the Planning and Development Committee has this, it's a tool. So we just want to make sure that you're aware of it, but no, you're fine.
Yeah. Okay, Jim, did you have one more thing to add?
Yes, just for the clarity purposes, the only reason why we use this section of our community was because of it serves as a good example. Not we are referencing to the particular community. So, like one of the other examples is 1130 Shuswap Avenue, the lines where we have a series of the property, the OCP designation, and then the zoning matches as they are in the commercial spectrum. However, for that case, slightly different to this one is that its actual use wasn't matching with that of OCP and zoning. So although we are seeing a snip of this area in the community, there are other parts of the community where it experiences a similar situation where we may need to address it through the appropriate planning instrument. So that's the reason why we picked this one for today, so that the discussion can be conceived.
Great, okay, thank you. Nicole, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Sure, through the chair. It is similar to probably that stripped down Shuswap Ave, where people want to start doing additions and accessory dwelling units, but our OCP or our zoning makes it restrictive. So we're just looking maybe for a general ideas. We're still thinking highway commercial in this area. If anyone approaches us to purchase any of these lots or to develop the lot further, we're looking for a highway commercial component. Does that sound right?
Okay, great, thank you. We do have the agents in the Jeff, if you want to have a little comment on what your thoughts are for the owner, because we did discuss this with Scott, our previous planner, and but it wasn't rezoned. It was part of the zoning bylaw 1000 and it stayed the same. And we thought it should probably go to commercial, but it didn't at the time. So Jeff, do you wanna give us a little highlight of what your proposal was?
Well, I don't know, I think most of you know that my past history, I was a counselor. I also was for 6 years. I was involved in the OCP and I was involved in the zoning bylaws. Unfortunately, took about 7 years to get it from. And they got provided. At the time we were doing the zoning bylaws, we went around and talked to the different various players and asked what zoning they wanted. So it was submitted that that area there, which is most of them, except for Falls product. And they came up with a zoning plan, district second came up with a C1 highway commercial, and now I hear this highway commercial A, is that amendment to something or what are you, what's that designation?
Go ahead, Dean.
So through the chair, C1 and C2 is the spectrum of the zoning bylaw. And then that highway commercial A and B that we usually hear is a designation within the official community plan.
Right.
They are separated in two different things, but they are kind of in needs of I guess harmonization.
Yes, for sure. And so I did not go back and look at the current OCP. What's the current OCP map you had before? What's it have like the OCP designation, because you have the red and the yellow, that's so highway commercial A and OCP.
Yeah.
And, highway commercial is C2. Under
I believe it's
C2,
One,
one,
two.
C1 country residential, like it's a hodgepodge, and I was supposed to get them amalgamated before this zoning bylaw was done.
highway commercial is a C2. That's a highway commercial property. That one.
So by looking at the uses for highway commercial compared to C1, some of the things that kind of like more. The argument always was it's not really highway commercial. This was not a very good access on highway, which was another thing that was talking about. Which so if there is consideration to rezone that, if it's done in the near future, then it would be great to have. But what would be best suited for the purposes that he would like to use. My understanding it's also that BC assessment, just because you change the zoning, doesn't change their value of the property, it's all based on the terms. So, what do you think? There is one residence in there, the rest of that property. West end is all right. So if there's a way to move this forward, section.
Thanks, Jeff. I'll ask Nicole, I guess probably, you probably come in and would sit down in the chamber here and, review all the uses and everything. Nicole, do you want to comment how we proceed to
Yeah,
change
sure.
that?
But we had no immediate plans to do anything on our own. I think it was more a high level, what do you want to see here? It sounds like yes, for sure. And so if the owner is interested in aligning this better with OCP or vice versa, then yes, we would love to have that conversation. Yeah, and start that process.
Okay, great, thanks, Nicole.
And a timeline,
Timeline to have the meeting or timeline to,
timeline to start the process and actually. 6 years.
Nicole, what's the procedure? How, like, I know you gotta go through highways and you gotta.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we would have to go through our, I guess, our typical OCP amendment and zoning bylaw process, which is a number of council meetings. And which got approval for the zoning bylaw amendment. It's not six years, it just really depends on when you approach us and then. Line it up with our meetings.
Sorry,
Go ahead, Deb.
yeah, maybe I'm misunderstanding, what would the OCP amendment be? Because what we're saying is that the OCP
Oh,
is saying highway commercial, it's just the zoning that needs to be aligned, not the OCP, or am I missing something?
Nicole,
Yeah.
if we,
Well, maybe I'll further choose that best OCP designation.
Through the chair, because of the complexity, so when we ideally, when we review the OCP or the zoning changes, either matching it or not matching it with the purpose or whatever situation that is, it is quite important for us to not only look at the property itself, but also the abutting property. So that, for example, the zoning gradually moves from the residential to the lower degree of the commercial, higher degree of the commercial, and highway commercial and industrial, then zoning being jumping from like residential to the industrial. So for this one, and then some other cases too, if there is no absolute necessity for the development, or if the property owner may not desire to change the zoning because of the OCP says this. So OCP is what community wants to see, and then the current zoning may be the one that the property owner wants to see. So they are not necessarily required, but what we are trying to advise is that if the form of a development that is in a spectrum of the commercial, for let's say for those particular properties, because of those current zoning support residential form of a development, it may need to be matching to that of a commercial, should the property owner wishes to develop the property in a commercialized manner than the current of the residential. If they continue to want, if they desire to use the residential scope of those properties, the current zoning is okay. And then although the OCP may not necessarily matching it, unless there is a larger scope of development being featured within the property, it's okay for them not to rezone the property.
So if I understand right, then an OCP amendment may not be required. You gotta figure that out.
Well,
May not.
they may not.
great, thanks, June. Okay, Jeff, yeah, basically, first thing you can do is make an appointment with the planning department and get the application going. And what we'll do is, I think, Nicole, you think, because this is a big amendment to the zoning bylaw, should we be doing a quick review of any other properties that, because there's a couple other ones that didn't get rezoned, and should we be doing them all at once when we do an amendment?
Yeah, through the chair, I guess that would probably take more work, which might make like this one longer. But you're right, there are a lot that we need to review around town, and they keep popping up. We have some coming up maybe today and some at the October 9th council meeting. So it's definitely something that we need to review as a whole.
Okay, thanks. Jeff, do you want to do that? Make an appointment, get the application going? Yeah. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Yeah, just if I may, through the chair, that we'll reach out to Jeff. Okay, to get that started, so.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you very much. Anything else, June? Okay. Little bit of direction. Cool, thank you very much. All right. Official community plan amendment, number 1048 or 1084, 2024, the zoning bylaw amendment number 1085, 2024, 1117 Shuswap Avenue. Who's gonna take this one?
Yeah, I will, through the chair.
Thanks, Nicole.
Is that further in the,
It's for 1117 Chippewa Ave. We were on the slide.
we were on it? Okay, sorry. I was looking for this one. Okay.
Okay, so today we are looking at 1117 Chippewa Avenue. The property is in an area that we've been seeing some recent rezonings for some residential uses. And so right now this property is designated town center under the OCP. And it is zoned C1 local and town center commercial. However, there is no commercial use on this property, it's a home. So the proposal is very, very similar to 1132 Schwab Avenue that has come to the committee recently and it's going through the process. The owner would like to expand the existing house. And right now, because they're zoned C1, they have, they're legal non-conforming. And when they want to add the addition, that is not in line with the zoning, and so we need to address that. And how we've been addressing it, I can go to the next slide. One more. We had a discussion at the PDC about Shuswap Avenue, it came up again today, how there's some of these properties that have homes on them and people are wanting to, you know, start doing ADUs and additions, but they're being restricted by the zoning bylaw. So at that committee meeting, we kind of decided in north of Main Street on Shuswap, we want to remain commercial. And then south of that, we kind of felt like there was some flexibility, and if people wanted to continue to live there, then we would allow that to happen. But as people come in to do their additions, they need to go through this rezoning process. So the proposal is to amend the OCP. Do you mind going back a couple slides?
This one.
So what are they in the OCP right now?
Oh, sorry.
Centered. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we have to do an OCP amendment just to bring them out of that town center and into more of a low density residential, and then do the rezoning into our residential. And so part of this discussion, and we kind of talked about it in the other proposals, is the property is also designated in the OCP, the town center development permit area, but typically we ask for those permits for bigger developments like 425 Main Street, and some of the examples that we have is more recently 303, 307 Red Bush Lane and 222 Temple Street. Those properties also went through a similar rezoning to align them with housing. But in that case, we also amended the OCP development permit area to maintain the requirement for a development permit, and we're going through that process now. What we've suggested for some of these smaller ones, the residential ones going through OCP amendment and rezoning, is that they'll remain in the town center development permit area, but if they're doing an addition, we won't be requiring a development permit from them. It's more if someone purchased that property by chance and then they do want to do something multi-unit, then we would take a look at that at that time. So that's the expectation for those properties that have already gone through this process, and this is one more. So today we've got two recommendations. One's for the OCP amendment, designate the property from town center to residential low density, and then to rezone the property from C1 local and town center commercial to R1 general residential.
Thank you, Nicole. I guess I'll read both recommendations and we'll discussion after that. Recommended that the Planning and Development Committee recommend the District Council give first and second reading to the official community plan amendment bylaw number 1084, 2024, to redesignate the property legally described as Lot 4, District Lot 452, Kamloops Division Yale District Plan 8263, which is 1117 Shuswap Avenue from town center to residential low density. Okay, I have a mover on that one. Yeah, second to John. Okay, and I'll read the second recommendation. The Planning and Development Committee recommend the District of St. Louis give council first and second reading to the zoning amendment bylaw number 1085, 2024, to rezone the property legally described as Lot 4, lot 452 Kelms, Division Yale, District Plan 8263-1117 Schwab Avenue from C1 local and town center commercial to R1 general residential. May I have a mover? Dawn, seconder, Deb. Okay, discussion, Deb, you have, you want to comment on? Go ahead, Darrell.
Sir, if I may, through the chair, that each recommendation be dealt with independently, so you have a mover, seconder, have debate. And then you would do similar to the next one rather than just function them up, so.
Okay, we'll debate on the first one. Any comments or concerns on zoning? Bishop Community Plan.
We've already discussed this, so.
Okay, all those in favor? Carried.
Great, thank you.
Okay, the second one is basically zoning amendment bylaw. Mover and a seconder, any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Next one. All right, thank you. Moving right along, development permit number 24319, development permit and development variance permit number 24319 PDP, which is 541 Thompson Court. Oh,
Chair, so today we are looking at 501 Thompson Court. And we've got a couple recommendations. One is for a development permit for a facility as a whole. And then the second recommendation is for a development variance permit for variance. Okay, so this is the property, 501 Thompson Court, just did a larger map there, cross the rails and then take it left before going down onto Old Town Road. Right now, under the OCP, it's mostly designated general industrial. In this map, it's kind of hard to see, the yellow is so bright, but there's a tiny overlap of, I think it's rural. I'm gonna suggest that we go with what this property is primarily designated as, which is industrial. I don't know what happened with that, maybe these were old property lines when the OCP was made and it used those lines, or it's just been running error. So if you go to the next slide, under the zoning bylaw, which the property is entirely zoned industrial. So we marked that OCP mapping error, I'll call it, for when we do our OCP. This area in general, you can see it has been designated for zoned industrial, so this makes sense. Okay, so there's actually a couple of variances that I noticed in my recommendation, you might have to do a little amendment because I only mentioned varying one thing, got two things. So the first on the left is varying the rear setback from 6 meters to 3 meters. So this building is adjacent to that rural area, and we know that that property is set for development in the future. It's going to be some type of employee housing. And so we connected with the owner of that property and let them know about this development. They're not concerned with the variance. They mentioned that building at the west corner there, and that building's been removed. It looks like it's spots in this mapping, so that's not an issue anymore. And then on the right hand side, we're also varying fence height. There's an existing chain link fence around the property. And in our zoning bylaw, the max for that is 1.2 meters, and they've already got it at 2. Okay, so a few drawings on this slide and some photos of the empty lot. So from the building perspective, obviously a building permit is going to be required. This building is the same designer as 1303 Morgan Court, which we did last fall. It's a very similar building. And so just depending on the proposed size, an architect might be required, they're going to be looking at the same process as that property. For bylaw, they had no objections or this property. For fire, no comments to date, but we have our special guest fire chief, Lorenzo here. And so if there's anything that he'd like to comment on today, he can. And then for operations, there were no objections for this one. There's capacity though to connect to the biofuel facility if the owner would like to. So that's good news. So recommendations again.
okay, thank you, Nicole. Well, I'll read the recommendations individually. Recommending the Planning Development Committee recommend the District of St. Louis Council authorize the issuance of development permit, number 24-319 DP to permit the development of a storage facility. The property legally described as Lot 2, Section 1, Township 22, Range 7 west of the 6th Meridian, Danvers, Division EO District. Plan EPP 1920. Which is 541 Thompson Court. May I have a mover? John? Okay, a discussion? Anybody have any concerns? Renzo, did you?
Yeah, so we're looking at residential potentially on it, or what is the future plan of that?
That building is a storage building proposed.
It's an industrial storage building.
At this moment, what the future plan is?
So that is the future plan, right?
Oh, okay. It's adjacent. The adjacent property, okay, yeah.
In the future. And that developer or that landowner has approved plan. Okay,
Great.
anybody else? Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Okay, recommend that the Planning Development Committee recommend the District of St. Louis Council authorize the issuance of development variance permit number 24-319 DEP to vary zoning bylaw number 1100 2024 requirements for the rear setback of the property described in Lot 2, Section 1, Township 22, Range 8, west of the 6th Meridian, KDYB Plan EPP 61920, which is 541 Thompson Court. May I have a mover? One, seconder Deb, okay, no discussion?
Well, the amendment.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. I just,
And a little amendments required, because I believe it's the rear setback, but we're also gonna need the
Fence.
fence,
Okay, you got that?
vary the fence height. Oops,
someone might have to formally say
from max
it.
from 1.2 meters to 2 meters. So someone needs to make that motion to amend.
Deb, you make that, amend that?
Yeah.
Second, John,
Vote on the amendment,
all those in favor on the amendment? Carried,
not on the main motion, as amended.
and now the main motion. Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Okay, thank you, thanks, Sarah. Okay, thank you.
Excellent.
Shane, you had your hand up just for a minute. Was there something that you were concerned about?
No, just minor things on the trees there, so, but it's
Okay, I'll just, yeah, I'll, over the years, we've been out, we have a new, CEO and also planner. Over the years, we've talked about in the industrial park, we keep making our developers put in cedars and they keep dying. And you know, the fire chief's not a big fan of cedars and because of Roman candles. But because it's alongside the railway, it does receive a lot of coal dust. And also, because it's next to the Walmart facility, the calcium chloride is coming out of their development onto the road and actually ended up in the ditch and it's killing the cedar. So, you know, Shane, I know Shane has had questions before. Would you want to just make a proposal and just kind of discuss with the staff?
sure, but thank you for listening. With Walmart, with the trees there, we're in an industrial park. What I've been working with Walmart, reporting them for dust and everything else on the road, but it's easier to work with them, so we've come up with a plan to keep the street clean whenever, but still whenever it rains, brings calcium chloride that they treat the dust in their yard for out on the street. As it dries, it turns to a fine dust, the calcium chloride gets in the trees, kills the trees, so we're having a hard time doing that. So I recommend, or I'd like to see, instead of us putting trees in there, potential fire hazard, that we do more of a rock landscape underneath the fence. As you can see in the property that I built there at 531, we put crushed rock, decorative rock underneath all the fence. It stops the grass growing in there. Looks much better, cleaner, less risk of fire coming in. So that part would be nicer if we could do that more rock landscape than trees everything dying.
Great, thanks Shane.
Okay.
And just a little other history is what we did recommend years ago is, and instead of making the developer put in, you know, a whole bunch of landscaping and trees that are always dying, because Walmart's trees all died as well. You know, maybe it's you know, a $500 or whatever, donate or not a donation, but something to the entrance of the industrial park, that you could do some entrance of the park instead of spending all the money on these cedars that keep dying, so it's just something that staff could make note of, and I think it would make the industrial park look a lot better and cleaner if we just, you know, if we stayed away from cedars, because now we have, if you drive over there and have a look, there's dead cedars here and there. So, all right. Okay, thank you very much. All right, moving right along. We have item D, temporary use permit, which is 24-298.
Video or just talk?
DUP, which is 231 Emerson Street. Okay, who's gonna take us away? Oh,
Okay, so who's here? At our last PDC, this temporary use permit, for discussion. And so the property here, 231 Finlayson Street. Right now it's designated town center and under the OCP, or under the zoning bylaw. Thank you. It's multi-unit residential, so MUR 1. Okay, so as a reminder, this is the site plan. I would say everything on, everything on here is good. There's a ton of tiny buildings on here. The proposal for the temporary use permit is the 3 RV sites in the bottom right. So at the last discussion, the committee had recommended a few things that they'd like to hear from the owner about, and one of them was water. So this water plan was provided. I put in the markings of the green, just a little bit hard to read, but in general, they have a connection to the community system at Finlayson Street that walks along the property line, and then it branches out to each of these existing homes. And from what I understand from the owner who's on the line today, they've also branched out to the proposed RV sites. Okay, and just for some clarification, I would say, so RVs are permitted in any zone for a maximum of 21 days in a calendar year. That's a little bit hard to regulate, but in general, we allow that because sometimes people need to live somewhere while they build a house, and that's just something that we permit in the general regulations of the zoning bylaw. A temporary use permit, which is what this application is, can allow those RVs to stay longer just to test it out and to prepare the property for further development. At the last meeting, the owner had indicated that they would like to build something in the area where the RVs are proposed. And so they hired someone after that meeting to give us at least a pretty preliminary building drawings as shown on this slide. Looks like it's a 4-plex. So for internal referrals, building, so the placement of the RVs don't require a building permit. But each time a new connection is made for sewer and water, a permit is required from the building department. And so no recent permits have been applied for, and we've made the owner aware that those, each time they connect to their line within the property, that does require a permit from us. And so for bylaw, there were no complaints at our last meeting, but recently we've heard of some generators running on the property from the RVs that are there. And so the bylaw department has followed up with a letter to the owner, and the owner is addressing it. That's for the generators. And then for operations, we also have our special guest Daryl here, just to talk about sewer and water, but I would say, regardless of if this temporary use permit is and the RV sites connect to water, there's a backflow prevention issue that we would say it's required to be installed. So no matter what direction this application goes, we're going to have to deal with this on the side. And so from a district perspective, there's no concern for the additional sewer connections, but those connections do require a permit from the building department. And they might require approval from other agencies at the owner's discretion, thinking Interior Health 3. And then for fire, obviously, Chief Lorenzo is here today and can speak to his concerns.
okay, thanks, Nicole. I'll just read the recommendation. Yeah, I'll read the recommendation and we'll have discussion.
Yes, you do. I guess I would just say today we've got a positive recommendation, and I'm saying this because if the owner can overcome anything that we discussed today, so if they can do the backflow prevention and deal with the sewer. And maybe they don't have 3 RV sites and they only have 1, and that makes us feel better about setbacks and fire access. Then that's why we're recommending what the team. But it really depends on what how this conversation goes today.
Thanks, Nicole. All right, recommend the planning and development committee, recommend the district supervisors council authorize the issue of a temporary use permit application 24-298 TUP for the property located at lot A, district lot 452, Kamloops Scale Division District, plan 5865, which is 231 Finlayson Street, for 3 recreational vehicles for a period of 3 years, subject to the conditions of this permit. May I have a mover? Deb, seconder John? Okay, discussion. Any have any concerns? With that?
From what, yeah, sorry, through the chair, from what I recall, the big issue of concern last time was fire. I went and drove over there and took a look, so I really like Lorenzo's comments.
Okay, Lorenzo,
Yeah, I'm just, I would look at.
to add to this?
So, the TPU is in effect right now?
No.
No,
No,
so, but it's observed, it's contemplated, okay. So, yeah, just a concern for that is the activity of, and the spacing between the RVs and the size of the RVs, are they, vehicles or are they actual trailers?
through the chair, the owner's on the line, so maybe they can talk about what they have in place there.
Okay. Owner on the line?
Is that it?
They're trailers,
Eight trailers?
3.
That's temporary use, then that could be moved at, just like a vehicle, same thing, not a double wide mobile.
No.
And what's the spacing between them currently, roughly?
10 feet in between each.
You can easily fit a car in between them if you need to.
Okay, that's a good visual. And then propane or gas cylinders, where are they stored or being used?
They're mounted, I think all of them have them in front of the trailer. So before the hitch, there's like metal support that they're in and covered in like a plastic covering, and they're kind of secured down with metal strapping, I think, like whatever the manufacturers have.
Just like an RV, like a
Yeah.
regular RV propane tank storage.
And those are the smaller sizes, not the larger residential ones, right? So
Yes.
there's the D size and then there's the more like a barbecue size.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Just want to pick it up. Are you able to put up an aerial by any chance?
What?
I do have.
You want a satellite imagery?
Yeah, just
This one.
There you go.
Sorry.
Yeah.
okay, great. So our main access is off Filson then. And so the RVs are resting at the far end, right there's where you have the icon. No.
Here?
No, where are they stored right now?
Right here.
Right there, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, here. Right here.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so we definitely have water supply on the main road, and then it's probably 200 feet in. So how wide is the entrance in? Is it 6 meters roughly, or do you have an idea?
I don't know.
Entrance, sorry.
Yeah, from the main road into the property, so I'm trying to establish a fire.
It should be on one of the diagrams. Maybe how many feet?
That looks like it, that bottlenecks.
Yeah, it's a little tight there, but a fire truck could get through.
Yeah,
It is tight, but it could get through. It's the tightest spot is where the building is.
Yes.
You come into the property on the left?
Yeah, the most narrow, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
For the record, we did have the fire chief from previous, before Lorenzo. And he okayed it from the street. He said it would be fine to bring hoses in from the street.
Well, he actually walked the property and we showed him
Yeah.
that grass area and he said that's no problem for fire truck to all come all the way in and even back out.
Yeah,
And to run hoses where the
nearest hydrant is.
hydrants, yeah.
So he gave us approval, but then we didn't follow through on the other. We were thinking of turning it into a strata. That was the reason for that, and we abandoned that because it wasn't feasible. But we did have his approval earlier on that.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any other concerns? Lori?
Yeah, so June, do we know what that gap is there? I can't quite make it out. Because the other concern is, I don't know what their parking and car staging situation is when they come in. Because it's in the middle of the night, if there are cars in the way now, we've limited our space to get in and work space.
Well, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stalls that along the fence line where they would be out of the way. No, that's the other fence line, the back fence line, where they would not be in the way of that lane for trucks to come in, for a fire truck to come in.
Yeah, so as long as that's maintained and enforced, that's helpful for us.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they always just park along there.
Any other questions? Daryl, did you have anything?
We've done just a cursory review of this property. It came up and we knew it was coming to the meeting. So I wanted to get a little bit of reconnaissance from out in the field, just on helping the lay of the land. So I see the water line schematic that's presented today. I didn't see that before. It's good to know. We're still looking at an 1.5-inch line or a 2-inch line, I'm not sure which, that's servicing this whole property, which to my understanding is one parcel. And so, as we've got more than 3 dwelling units on this parcel, there's a requirement for double check valve for cross contamination. So we'd want to see like a pressure reducing zone double check valve. So that would be housed where the vault is at the property line on Pennington. We did take a quick look at the vault. Water meter there, we wanted to see that water meter's underwater. So we've got a cross contamination issue here that exists as it is. So I guess operationally that's super concerning to us.
Okay.
So we will be in discussion with the owner very shortly. We gotta get this fixed. In terms of next steps and what they want to do, I guess for my 2 cents, I'd like to see this get resolved before we add to the problem.
Okay,
Sure.
thank you, Daryl. Go ahead, June.
Through the chair, just at a quick glance, basing on the previous drawing that the proponent from long time ago submitted. This is a reply to the fire chief's question on the road width. It appears that if the information reflected from the previous drawings are the true and reflecting the present, the width of the entrance corridor is 18 feet. And then the width of a section from this line to there appears to be 7 meters.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so obviously, Nicole alluded to the fact that they are recommending it based on the various issues identified being resolved. So can we make a recommendation that it is, or that we're recommending it once, those are resolved?
Yep.
As opposed to just recommending it or not dealing with it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Nicole, do you have any comments? Can we postpone? till they have everything in order?
Sure, I mean, we've already postponed it once.
Okay,
It would be good to have a PUC recommendation either way, so that, because ultimately council's going down to decide on.
Based on.
PUC. So I think, yeah, more in line with what Deb is saying is, we could have a recommendation and if there's conditions tied to it, that might be better for the owner too, to understand what they need to do to be able to get to council.
yeah, no, I agree. Okay, Deb, do you want to make that recommendation?
Do I have to say it?
You have to say it, yes.
That, because we've got that, so that we amend the recommendation to that the owner satisfies the conditions identified as part of proceeding.
Sounds good. Okay, have a second? John? Okay, all those in favor? Carrie? Carrie, you got that?
So I'm considering that an amendment to the main motion.
It's kind of vague.
So then just voting on the main motion, the recommendation to approve so long as these conditions are met.
Main motion?
It was, yeah,
There you go.
I just need the vote.
Okay, go ahead. Deb's, the motion, John seconded. All those in favor? Carrie, sorry about that, thank you.
Voting
Okay.
amendment. There we go.
All right, Nicole?
Thank you for that, and I'm just hoping I can get some clarification on what the recommendation. Really need to satisfy the approval of the council. I guess one of them would be dealing with.
Yeah, through the chair. Think, we may want to just tie the approval or the conditions to an overall utility survey that is compliant with
Subject
subject to all regulation, all regulatory bodies. But in the district.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. Is that okay, Sarah?
Yeah.
That'll work.
Yeah.
It's all that.
Okay, and Nicole?
And then, so that would address utilities. Is there anything that needed to be changed in terms of emergency services?
I mean, I could make a recommendation that, Lorenzo walk the property and, make sure he's comfortable with it and, you know, that would be one of the points that. we should be,
Prerequisite.
You know, we should be aware of and make sure it's safe. And, that wouldn't take long, just like Brett did.
Yeah, that'd be wise, so we can actually see the distance between the water supply and anything else that we can't see from an aerial shot or.
Okay, those two recommendations, everybody okay with that? Right? That's good, Sarah. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you too for, making that application. Okay, moving right along, one last one, we have the zoning, bylaw amendment number 1082/2024. It's the transportation corridor zone. Who do you want to?
Yeah, I'll take it down to this, yeah. So, I don't know if it was our last PZ meeting, but one of them, we said that we would take the draft and then throw it into a formal bylaw and then really think about what it means, and so we've got a lot of questions. So, good points for it. And I just took a bunch of the questions out of the staff report, put them in these slides and that. And the first one was just if this name is appropriate. I think it's been proposed as P6 transportation corridor. I think most of our P zones in park, and when we went through the rezoning of the rail trail, park was a hot topic. And so I don't know if we should keep with this as P6, or if there's a preference for it to be something else like a TC transportation corridor. Maybe a few other options. I tried to pull a Daryl because we have smart feeds out there. So I went with St. Louis Narrows. So just but really is the key fix what we're looking for here, because we can carry through with that and then go to council, or we can call it something else. This is the time.
Okay, I'll comment, Nicole. Since I made this recommendation a while back, and we were having all these on the rail trail, because they wanted to get it rezoned so they could actually get working on it. The reason I brought this up is, our original planners was Mike Mars, and Mike had, designated that as a transportation corridor years ago, and it's in our still in our OCP as a transportation corridor. And some of the property owners on that rail trail had to give easement, to the district of St. Louis. It was a requirement to do a development, on the far south end of the zone. And they had to provide sewer to the rail trail. And then many of our council to council meetings with Splatson, there was always a discussion about sewer to the reserve. And a natural place for the sewer would be under the rail trail or off the edge of the rail trail. So I kind of thought it should always stay a transportation corridor. Should it be a park? I'm afraid, I mean, it is a park now, we zoned it a park. But I'm always afraid after 10 years or something, it becomes a park and then you can't touch it. So I always said that it should stay a transportation corridor. And I just use P6, it could be any name if you want it, but I just call it P6. But I just feel that very strongly that for the district interest, and not this year, or not maybe 5-10 years from now, down the road, that it should stay a transportation corridor. And I threw a whole bunch of uses in there, which Nicole has played with, and I'm okay with all those. And yeah, I just think it's very important that we keep this transportation corridor, not a park. So, yeah, so that's what I thought we should do. So any discussion?
Yep, no, makes sense to me.
All right, John, you're good with that?
I think it makes sense to keep it open, like you're saying, keep that not as a partner.
Flexible.
Yeah, but because once it becomes a park, and it is a park now, but years down the road when, let's say they decide they were gonna bring natural gas to St. Louis, it's kind of a natural from Greenrock to here, instead of being in the lake, it might be on land. So I just thought it would be very important to keep the transportation. Yeah. All right, Nicole, is that good? Anything you wanna go through?
Yeah, there's a few more slides, yeah.
Yeah, so it says that we're just receiving this for information, so
Yeah.
there's no real discussion on next steps today or anything. Okay.
Unless somebody makes a recommendation. Go ahead, Nicole.
Okay, so didn't dabble too much into the intent from what was proposed. Hopefully it hits the mark. I don't know if anyone else has any comments on here, or wants to see any changes before we formalize it.
Well, I think you hit the mark on all that. I reviewed it and hope Deb and John, you're good with that? Okay.
Okay, so definitions and uses. So I had to add a couple definitions because rail trail wasn't defined in our zoning bylaws, and same with pedestrian bridge. We're talking about quite a bit. They're really general descriptions, but if we're going to use them as a use, we should find them. And then I don't know if public utilities was proposed as a principal use, but public utilities are already permitted in all zones in St. Louis. So it's not under the principal use of the draft bylaw. Just a concern with that.
I have a question. Will this, it says non-motorized, will it be e-bikes and e-scooters be allowed on there?
Go ahead, Nicole.
Answer the question or?
No,
Okay, the answer, okay.
no definition, those definitions are good, yeah,
Okay,
use.
and then we didn't need to add any definitions for some of the other things because they were already defined on our zoning bylaw. So accessory uses. This is listed in prohibited signs to the kiosk, as we had in prohibited sign already in our bylaw, and kiosk is one. So just a couple edits there. And then, I don't know if we were thinking that picnic tables needed to be listed as an accessory use because they're not defined in the zoning bylaw, but I would say they're probably permitted everywhere, because people do have them. So I don't know if we want to take it that far and list it as an accessory use. just to throw around. And then same with refuse and recycling bins, they're already permitted in all zones. And so we're just kind of proposing that we would list them as an accessory use, but there's options if you want to be clear about that.
I think it's fine, I mean, I don't think it needs to be defined that tight, so I agree with your comments.
First slide, accessory uses, so parking as an accessory use is kind of tricky, because typically parking is a requirement of the use. And so, right now we've got it crossed out as a use. If there's any thoughts on that, I know parking was a big discussion point for rezoning these properties to be free, and I don't know if there's any other.
Yeah, that is a tricky one because the original zoning to park, they couldn't supply parking either. And so, yeah, if there's nothing there for parking, I guess, why have it in the definition, so. Debbie or John, you have any comment?
Yeah, so I'm not sure I'm clear. So we're saying that if it's not listed as an accessory use, that no parking is allowed, or because I assumed that they would have some designated parking. I see them actually working down by my place, and they put a porta potty, and they seem to be adding some parking space.
Yeah, go ahead, Nicole.
Yeah, through the chair, so I guess typically parking is a requirement of use.
Yeah.
So if you have like a residential building, you need a certain amount of parking spaces, in this case, the use is a trail.
Yeah.
So, to list parking as an accessory use is just not something that's in any of the zones.
But have they got a requirement as a park? Are they required to have so much parking? Because otherwise it flows out into the neighborhood, right?
Yeah, that's a good question, I don't know the answer to that, I mean. Seeing it around your property, they are. Dealing with parking, but not on these properties within Sigma, so that's why it's tricky,
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know how to address that, that's tricky.
Yeah, that's a big concern, I mean, the CSRD is, you can't provide parking either, so,
We can look at it.
Darryl, do you have any comments or anything you'd like to add?
If there's, yeah, we can have a look at it. Absolutely.
Okay.
I guess through the chair, ultimately, I don't think we would list parking as an accessory use. It's
Yeah,
a
just
requirement
require.
of the use.
Yeah.
It's just how we deal with that. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, so under the C5 zone, we have an example of site-specific regulations, and in that zone, it says may include structures such as a washroom, shower facilities, trail, roof outdoor kitchen, bean coats, refuse, recycling. So we can make a site-specific reg for this new zone that includes all the things that we would like, or that we're comfortable with. That's something we wanted to be quite clear that that's what's permitted there, or we don't have to. No.
I would agree with that. Done? You good with that? Yeah, okay.
And then next slide. It's a little bit busier, talking about density, so. I don't know where the origin of 36 meters squared came from for the surface area of fixed or movable walkway, I'm sure there's a story to it. It's also listed under the W1 zone, it's the city zoning bylaw, and that's what's been proposed in this zone. Have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just pulled it out of our existing, I think it was W1, that's where I pulled that out of, so, whatever, I mean, it looks, it looks okay, I think.
And then I was gonna recommend removing parcel coverage provisions in this zone. W1 and W3, they don't have parcel coverage provisions either, mostly because none of the principal uses permit something that would like affect parcel coverage like a. So I'm just gonna suggest maybe remove it and keep it a little bit similar to W1 to W3.
Yeah.
And then also removing a maximum height for principal uses, because no principal uses are buildings, so there's no maximum height.
Good point.
some. But it changes from the proposed plan. Okay, and then one more. Here, so, okay, setbacks, for the rail trail and things, there's 3 parcels, and then the rest is outside of our jurisdiction. But for those 3 parcels, they mainly run north-south. And so what I was suggesting is maybe we'll only have setbacks for the east and west boundaries. And in the draft bylaw, it was a 5-meter setback proposed for the west side of the trail that abuts the private properties. And so we kept that, and then I was just gonna suggest 0 meters for the side, but that's the channel and nothing else is gonna go in the channel. Decided, so we're proposing 5 and 0, 2 setbacks, no setbacks for the north and south end of the trail, because it just connects to more trail.
No, that sounds good, Nicole.
Okay, and then just pulling the minimum parcel area. If we even need to have it, we probably don't, because parcel area is more important for when you're subdividing lots and ensuring they have enough area for building homes and whatnot. But the smallest parcel in Signals for the rail trail is around 900 meters squared, so I've just thrown that as the minimum parcel area. Just remove it.
Okay. That sounds good.
Okay. And then last, maybe the last slide. And then just removing minimum parcel dimensions. This is also probably more important for subdivision, when you're subdividing the property, you wanna make sure they have enough access to road. In this case, parcels probably aren't gonna be subdivided, but if we wanted to throw a number in there, 10 meters seems reasonable to access the road, that's the minimum we're looking for. We've got this off-street parking mentioned, and it's gonna be according to Schedule D, which is every zone. But after what we just talked about with the parking, we can take a peek and see what that really means, and then bring it further to council.
Okay.
And last, some site-specific regulations have been added to the, I guess I'll call it the new draft from the previous draft. I think I have this on the slide.
I think they were,
Yeah, no, that's okay. I have them here, I can read them out. So from the draft that was proposed, it says stat right of way in favor of District of Sickmans for access to the waterfront. Is permitted to service the west side of the channel in case of flood, drought, fire, emergency. Another one is motorized vehicles are not permitted except for maintenance and emergency vehicles. Accessibility aids, including self-propelled wheelchairs or other similar devices, are permitted. And pedal assist electric bicycles. Those are the site-specific regs for this zone.
Go ahead, Deb.
Just a question, is it ever envisioned that the rail trail could be used for fire access?
If our side by side could fit down there for interface and size up. Definitely would be
We've got,
very-
right now, we've got dump trucks driving up and down it, so.
That's very useful for us, that's something that we are gonna
Okay.
continue to build on, is really map out where we have access or limited access.
Good, thank you.
Okay, and I think that's the last slide. Oh, I have next steps.
Mhm.
So based on today's conversation, we'll revise the draft. And then, I feel like because you don't own these properties, we should probably chat with the CSRD or the Okanagan Regional District, and they will connect with Slasheen about the rezoning from P3 to new zone. And then bring it probably to a committee of the whole, just as an update, this is where we're at. And then eventually council.
Okay, no, that sounds good, Nicole.
Okay,
Sounds really good.
okay, good.
Thank you very much for, you spent a lot of time in that. Right, all right, moving right along, Common Cruise Services, current applications. Nicole, I guess
Yeah,
that's
let's
good then.
see again, okay, so. Let's see here, maybe I'll start at the bottom. And so the new application that's just come in is for 505 Pauley Avenue. We haven't taken too much of a dive into it yet, but it's an OCP amendment to redesignate that property for rural to medium density residential and to rezone it from country residential to something. Probably like a R1 or R4, or maybe an MUR1. So I think the high level next is, I don't know, this property is just north of Bayview. It's a pretty big property, and so the development resembles the Bayview development. But what they're proposing is to have single family residential, as well as some multi-unit residences, townhouses, super preliminary, so that will be coming. Okay, 1455 Silver Sands Road, this is more of a reminder. This is the 0 meter rear setback for Sycamore Sands. It's on here again because we had done first and second reading with council, and then we got a little bit tied up in the readoption of 2024, and with the advice of legal counsel, they said maybe just abandon 1455 and start it over, just to be sure that it's valid. And so we're gonna take that back to council again for first and second to go through that. So we've gone through that process with PEC already here. For 1117 Shuswap Ave, yeah, we just talked about that today. 1209 Riverside Avenue. This one didn't come to the PEC, but it did go to council for first and second reading. This property is the station across from the Red Barn. It's those townhouses there, there's 6 units. And so they're rezoning from C1 to R1. Okay, got that one. Oh, yeah, it's C1 to R2. Yeah. Because they have no commercial component there. And so it sounds like they're trying to sell some of the units when the owners want to buy, the insurance companies get commercial, and there's some problems getting residential insurance. So we've gone straight to council for that one. 541 we just talked about today, as well as 231 for 1133 Shuswap Avenue. That's quite similar to 1117 Shuswap Ave. That's going through council for seconds public hearings. I think 1383 Silver Sands Road. So if you remember that one, it was the result of a stop work order over at Silver Sands for covered carport or yeah. And then the PDC had some recommendations that the owner complete before going to council. And so the owner has completed most of those, and we're prepared to go to council with that one on October 9th. 222 Temple Street. Okay, so we're going to present this one to council on October 9th. It's going to be the development permit for 73 townhouses, and then a development variance permit for a couple planning things like setbacks and mapping. They proposed a phased development agreement as well, which is a bylaw. So right now we're working on a draft of that bylaw and the agreement itself. So pretty happy with that. We'll have to go to council for more than one meeting, obviously it's the bylaw, so we're second public hearing. So that all starts October 9th, which we're super excited about. 329 Main Street, October 9th is gonna be a very busy council meeting. We had that little pause with 1100 and now everything is just rolling back up. So 329, we're gonna take that to council as well on the 9th. That is the subdivision of Linda's Gift Store, and they're gonna break that back half off and build a home there. So we'll do that. TP and TPP. I don't have an update then, I think, for 326 Mirror Lake Lane. It's still just pending approval from the strata owners to rezone that building. For 1 Mervyn Road, they received right hearing approval from the province, so we're gonna also take that to council on October 9th. It's the redesign of Sycamore houseboats. They're just gonna leave a bunch of buildings back out of the SKIA and doing better for them. That came in, I feel like that came to the PDC a long time ago, but they're ready now. What else? So 918 Riverside, I don't have an update. This file still is in the applicant's hands. I know they're working with the PDP and trying to figure out what they want to do with their dock and whatever else. It sounds like maybe they don't know what to do yet, but it's still an active application for us. I know last time for 1006 was St. Pearson Road, the new ENW building. Council unfortunately gave an update and said that maybe they had gotten approval or close to getting approval from the province for foundation. I haven't heard anything, but nothing on my end.
Yeah, I know I just heard that the propane tanks have been removed by Superior, I think it's Superior. As they were building vegetable.
And the one at the top there, 102 Martin Ave to Riverside Ave. We have a meeting with the province and just talking about the riparian area requirements. This application is for a development permit, but we also have subdivision application for 26 strata lots pending. So I think we have some movement on this one, and it may be coming to council, might not be October 9th, but soon.
Okay, yes. I had one question on the waterfront ones where, like, on Riverside Avenue. Are we, when they go for a permit, are we looking at that 3-meter walkway? You know, on the waterfront?
Yeah, through the chair, yeah, so for sure, 102 Martin Ave to Riverside, that's got it in the proposal. And then the other one would be 918 Riverside Ave. That one for me, I haven't really picked up that file because it's been in the applicant's hands for so long, but that would be a requirement of that development as well.
Okay, just a reminder.
We don't need to correct it.
Okay, that's great, and good, Darryl? Oh, go ahead,
If I may,
yes.
Chairman Bushel, I just wanted to add to the conversation. The committee's doing really good work, you know, and we're really super encouraged by your leadership, you know, and these processes. We know that some of these applications take time, but some of them are complex. And I'm really super proud of the staff, you know, for the work that they've undertaken, like in the 2 months that I have been here, and just my observations of all the workload that was prior to that. I can't speak to the past. I can't speak to, you know, what happened 6 years ago or that 6-year time frame. I can only speak to what's happening now. And so without your support and without your leadership, right, doesn't make it possible, and very appreciative of that. Okay, thank you.
Oh, thanks, Darryl. I can comment on that too, and to help things along, like, I know Nicole, we went to once a month or once every other month or something on the meetings this past summer. Would it help for us to go back to every few weeks to speed things up, or what's your thoughts on that?
Through the chair, I mean, for me personally, I prefer the 1 month just based on the agenda fatigue. It's really hard to produce the agenda for the PDC and then bam, right into council the following week. It's nice to have this PDC meeting and then have a little bit of a gap to prepare us for the next council meeting. And I'm thinking more along the line, yeah, it's a lot of work to get that prepared, but we have the notifications and the newspaper ads that have to happen. So the 1 month is working well in terms of those timelines. I don't know if we've had any applications where we really felt like it was needed to call a special PDC meeting. Things seem to be going along pretty good. I think the biggest delay was 2024 and getting that adopted, and that's why we have a huge backlog. But why don't I just continue to monitor and, you know, what we're looking at, to ensure that there's no delays because of PDC. It's
That's good. Now, I know Darryl has, I think we looking for more help for you, so yeah, that also helps the well too, so. Okay, we'll monitor it and see how it goes. All right, perfect. All right, well, time for public input, and I just wanted to, before we get started, we have Vern and Christie they wanted to say a few words. They're new residents and they started a new business in town, so if you want to pop up to the microphone.
Yeah, we looked at a hotel with a public swimming pool, public hot tub, and a lazy river for the kids. As long as mechanic shop, fuel, and rental shop at the bottom. We're just looking to be directed in the right way to get this started. We have a few properties picked out, stuff like that, so, but we don't.
Okay, no, that's great. Thanks for coming in, Vern, and Nicole's right here, and in June, they look after our planning and development department. So you just make an appointment with them, and Nicole will just tell you how to do all that.
Very much.
Yeah,
Right, Nicole?
I was just, well, look it up, because I was just gonna mention that definitely put you in touch with, Carly over at Development Corporation.
Yeah.
If they have just on the pulse of what may be out there for development, and, you said you had a couple properties in mind, but you never know what they have up their sleeve for other opportunities, to get.
Great, go ahead there, Daryl.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Busher. Just like-minded, absolutely. It's a connection with Carly and then through the processes, right? We have what we call just a pre-application meeting. So when that time arrives, where you just want to make sure that we'll bring you in and you'll have discussions with every department within the organization, just so you have an understanding of what's next, right? We don't want to leave you hanging, just want to have you leave the room informed and pumped. So we'll make sure those things happen for you.
Great, thanks very much. Okay, do we have anybody online or anybody else? Or go ahead there, Jeff.
I would like to thank you for your contribution. That shuttle around for, so.
Mhm.
But I also was wondering, just the project. Housing. I don't see if that's not.
Yeah, it's still in the, so go ahead, Nicole.
But through the chair, so that's already, it's not on the list because it's already gotten approval from council. Right now, it's sitting at the building permit stage that doesn't require council's approval. And so we've hired a contractor recently to work on our commercial developments, because that one has the commercial at the bottom and the residences up top. And we connected that contractor with the developer, and they're just working through some of the I call them finer details of the building permit, and that's expected to be issued this fall.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. All right, anybody else have anything? Nobody online, Sarah?
Nope.
Great,
Pam's,
okay.
okay.
Well, we can, in this meeting, recommended the planning development committee meeting on September 25th, 2024, be adjourned at 10:32. Hoover, yeah, Senator John. Great, thank you, everybody. Thanks, Alan, for coming and helping us out, get through this. And